Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are really digging into the anatomy of a rival. We're going to explore all the intricate forces that define modern Iran's place in the world, from its revolutionary roots all the way to its current strategic chess matches. To really get a handle on Iran today, you have to go back to one single moment in history, a moment that didn't just change the country's identity, but completely redrew its relationship with the rest of the world and planted the seeds for conflicts we're still seeing play out.
This is the question, right? It's the key that unlocks this whole complicated web of conflicts, strange alliances, and the strategies that have really dominated the region for the last 4 decades. So let's dive in. The Iran we know today was basically forged in the fire of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. And this wasn't just a simple change in leadership. No, this was a massive, seismic event that completely overthrew a monarchy that had been around for centuries. It brought in a totally new, radical identity. I mean, the scale of this change is just staggering. Before 1979, you had the Shah's Iran, which was really pushing for secular, Western-style reforms, and it was a key ally of the United States. Then, after the revolution, under Ayatollah Khomeini, it becomes a theocratic republic. America goes from being an ally to being called the Great Satan, and Islamic law is suddenly the law of the land. It's a complete 180. But here's the thing. This revolution didn't just happen in a vacuum. It was really the culmination of a long and pretty painful history of foreign countries getting involved where they shouldn't have been. And that sowed these deep, deep seeds of suspicion toward the West. And if you look at the history, you see this pattern over and over again. Back in the early 1900s, you had Britain and Russia fighting over Iran's oil. Fast forward to 1953, and you have a CIA-backed coup that gets rid of a democratically elected leader. All these events just built up this feeling among many Iranians that, we just can't trust foreign powers. So this whole legacy of feeling vulnerable, of feeling like you're being manipulated by outsiders, that is the absolute bedrock of Iran's modern military and foreign policy. It's a strategy designed to make sure the country is never, ever that exposed again. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and look at the economic engine of the state. We're going to explore how its very unique structure allows it to survive and, in some weird ways, even thrive under just immense international pressure. So first things first, Iran is an energy superpower. That's just undeniable. It has huge oil reserves and some of the largest natural gas deposits on the planet. And all that energy wealth, it gives them some serious leverage on the world stage. But here's the flip side. That energy wealth also paints a giant target on their back for international sanctions. So in response, Iran has built what it calls a resistance economy. After the revolution, they nationalized all the big industries, and today the state controls a staggering 80% of the economy. The entire goal is self-sufficiency. But of course, that kind of isolation comes with a huge price tag for its people. We're talking rampant inflation and very limited opportunities. And here's where it gets really interesting. A huge part of this economy is controlled by these powerful religious foundations called bunyads. Now, officially, they're charitable trusts, but in reality, they're massive, tax-exempt business empires controlled by the clerical elite. They're into everything from construction to soft drinks, and they often just supplicate any real private competition, keeping the wealth right at the top. Now, this really unique internal economic setup has huge consequences for what happens outside of Iran's borders. It fuels this fierce competition for regional power, and that brings us to its number one rival, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. People often frame this rivalry as a religious thing, Sunni versus Shia Islam, but at its core, it's really a geopolitical power struggle. You have Iran, a revolutionary power that wants to shake up the regional order. And then you have Saudi Arabia, a status quo power, tightly allied with the US, that wants to keep things exactly as they are. So the real takeaway here is that while religion is a huge factor, it's often used as a political weapon. Both Iran and Saudi Arabia are masters at using this Sunni-Shia narrative to rally their allies, to weaken their rivals, and to fight for influence all across the Middle East. Now, both sides know that a direct, all-out war would be absolutely catastrophic. So instead, Iran has gotten really, really good at what we call asymmetric warfare, basically fighting its rivals indirectly through a whole network of proxy groups. And this is their playbook. It's how they do it.
This strategy lets Iran project power way beyond its own borders. It lets them destabilize their adversaries and makes the cost of any direct attack incredibly high. And they do all of this without ever having to officially send their own army into the fight.
And you can see the results of this strategy all over the region. You've got entire countries that have become battlefields in this long-running Cold War. We're talking about the Shia militias in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and, probably most tragically, the devastating civil war in Yemen, where the Iran-backed Houthis are fighting the Saudi-backed government. So that brings us to today, where you have this convergence of Iran's revolutionary identity, its uniquely resilient economy, and its masterful proxy strategy, and it all comes together to shape its very calculated and often confrontational role in the world. Look, everything Iran does is guided by a long-term vision, one that's deeply rooted in its history and its ideology. But the ultimate question, the one nobody has an answer to, is whether this incredibly complex and confrontational approach can actually last in a world with so much economic pressure and escalating conflict. Honestly, only time is going to tell.